There is a moment in every life when you decide to rise, to stand taller than your fear, to speak louder than your doubt, to chase the vision that sets your soul on fire. This is that moment. And here, we walk it together with stories that awaken, voices that inspire, and truths that set you free. This is Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald, where hope has a voice, and that voice is yours. And in this case, that voice is going to be Rochelle. First of all, how are you today?
I am amazing. You know, life has our days where we're tested. And one of those days is a Rochelle testing day, and that's today for me. But I am having high hopes. I have been inspired 1,000,001 times, and I get to again with our next guest, and I will let you introduce him.
His name is Asher Lester. He's got a website which is called nervousapes.com. And I asked him right before we began, nervousapes.com, where in the world, where did that name come from?
I heard a psychologist once say that human beings are nervous apes. And when I heard him say that, the first thing that came to mind was that Nervous Apes would be a great band name because I've been in music my whole life. And I wasn't in a band at the time to name. So I decided to name my company Nervous Apes because I was creating what I do now during COVID. And so just decided to go with that name for my company.
I got to ask you about your company, first of all. How has it changed post-COVID versus going into COVID?
Great question. It actually didn't exist pre-COVID. I was teaching meditation and breathing to a group of kids at Krav Maga Houston, a special group of kids that we call the Master Program. And when COVID happened, I decided to teach breathing and meditation to the Krav Maga community in Houston for free for the year of 2020, just to keep the community get together and to help people get through that crazy time. And after 2020, I never thought that I would love it as much as I did. Love teaching online over Zoom. All of that was new to me. I was used to just teaching in person. And, I loved it so much that I just decided to keep going. So here we are.
Perfect. I got to tell you, back when I started in 2002, 2003, meditation wasn't really a thing then. It was like I had people say, I would say to them, I'm going to learn how to meditate. And they were like, oh, but that's of the devil. You can't. And it's like, no, it's not. Come on. It's just breathing. But it's changed so much in the last 20 years, hasn't it?
It's changed in the sense that people's attitudes have changed. But what's interesting these days is it's as if people are just kind of tired of hearing about meditation and mindfulness to some degree. Like you have to call it something else almost, like attentional control or whatever. I think it's because people have felt like they are being talked to like you have to do this. And so they have a knee-jerk reaction that, no, I'm not going to do that. Or they try it and they feel like they're terrible at it. And so they just say, I'm just never doing that anymore. And I don't want to hear about mindfulness anymore, which is a shame because it can be so life-changing in a positive way. If a person will just stick with it long enough. I always say that people quit short of the miracle happening, right? Everybody quits right before the miracle happens. That miracle being that you start to experience great benefit from whatever it is that you're doing. And I see that a ton with meditation. And I think there's a lot of reasons for that. Not the least of which is that it's been separated. So if you look back at the old yogis, right? What the old yoga texts say is that you do movement first. Okay. Then you do breathing, then you do meditation. Well, if you do that, that takes a lot longer than just sitting and meditating usually, right? It takes a lot more effort. But there's some wisdom in that sequence. And you don't realize the wisdom of that sequence until you do that sequence multiple times. And then what you start to realize is that the movement and the breathing prepare you for the meditation. If you're just going about your hustle and bustle day and you try to sit down and meditate, the chances of it going well aren't as great because your mind is just so scattered. You're trying to go from 100 miles an hour to 0 at the turn of a dime, and it's just so hard for people to do. So if you incorporate the movement and then the breathing, then the meditation, the movement and the breathing help prepare the mind for the meditation. And so you're going to get a lot more bang for your buck out of the meditation if you follow that sequence. And if for some reason you don't have time to do that sequence, then just some sort of proper breathing exercise before meditation can make a big difference. If you think about the meditation world, it's so interesting because in once COVID happened, I just kind of went a little bit crazy with as many certifications as I could get in breathing and meditation. And part of the reason was I realized that each organization has a different perspective. They come at meditation, for example, from a different perspective. And then if you go to 5 different organizations for breathing, they do the same thing. But what's interesting is the meditation world is siloed away from breathing and movement. All 3 of them are siloed, right? So you have your yoga, then you have your breathing, then you have your meditation. Very seldom do you get them all in one place, a good comprehensive program. And so I would spend all this time in the meditation world and notice that there's no discussion of breathing except for when you first sit. Almost always the first instruction is after you close your eyes, what is it? It's take a few deep breaths. Well, what people don't realize is how you take those breaths matters in terms of whether you are activating your nervous system or deactivating your nervous system, kicking in the parasympathetic nervous system. And so if your goal, almost everybody's goal with meditation is to rest and relax, right? That's almost always the primary reason that people come to meditation. Well, the first instruction that they're provided is to take 5 deep breaths, for example. Well, they take those breaths in a way that activates rather than deactivates their nervous system. And then they feel like they can't meditate. And to them, they just internalize it as I'm terrible at meditating, and they end up quitting just because they didn't get proper instruction on how to breathe right off the bat, which is unfortunate. So yes, it has changed in a lot of ways. And in many ways, there's more people open to meditation and breathing than there ever has been. But at the same time, I'm seeing a lot of people being turned off by hearing the same terminology over and over and feeling like that they are being lectured to that you should be doing this thing, right?
Well, it's interesting. And by the way, Burchelle never scattered. She never has trouble focusing during her day at all, do you? So you can meditate at the drop of a hat, can't you, Burchelle?
Yeah, totally. That's why I laughed when you said that, because we're so easy to go from 0 to 100, but to come back down from that 100 is no joke. And we get there so quickly and so easily. And I have to ask you, Asher, when you're meditating, are we wanting to activate or deactivate?
That's such a wonderful question. It depends, right? If I'm wanting to be effective in this context, for example, I can't walk into this meeting with the 2 of you and be super deactivated. I can't be entirely restful, right? I have to have a balance between the 2. I have to be activated to some degree. In order for me to even be able to find my words, I have to be activated to some degree, right? But at the same time, in the background, I'm promoting rest so that I don't become over activated. So it really comes down to being mindful of what the status of your nervous system currently is, and then doing what is needed to either activate, deactivate, or balance the nervous system so that you can be most effective and skillful at whatever it is that you're engaged in.
So there was 3 different ways to breathe. Sorry, Kevin, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, so there's 3 different ways of breathing then for those things, or?
Yeah, so there are activating exercises. There are deactivating exercises.
Oh, I get what you're saying. Okay.
And there are balancing exercises. Yeah, if you're talking about breathing, right? But then there's the combination of breathing and meditation, which is super interesting in the sense, I don't know if you're familiar with the organization HeartMath, where you breathe in a way that brings about balance in the nervous system, but you also thinking about something that brings about, that evokes positive emotion. It can be joy, it can be awe, it can be anything, any positive emotion. And that positive emotion can be activating in the sense that it can increase your heart rate overall. But at the same time, you're balancing the nervous system through the breathing practice that you're engaged in. And interestingly, you can see real time. So if you use their device, the HeartMath device, which I absolutely personally love, it's a little device that goes on your ear and it shows on the screen real time what's going on with your heart wave. And the goal, just like you mentioned earlier, that 100 to 0 is really hard for people, right? It requires, we are sympathetically biased. Our nervous system is sympathetically biased, meaning that our nervous system is, the moment we wake up in the morning, we get that cortisol rush that wakes us up. We are sympathetically biased all day long, which means our nervous system has a certain level of activation. And in order to deactivate it, it requires some intentionality on our part, right? It requires an understanding of practice, breathing and meditation practices, in order to bring us down from 100 to something lower than that, something more along the lines of 0 to 20 or whatever it might be, right? And that's called kicking in the parasympathetic nervous system ultimately. So you have sympathetic and then you have parasympathetic, which is the rest and digest mode of the nervous system. And so what happens when you have this device on, you can see on the screen real time what's going on with your heart wave. And what I love about it is if I put that device on and I just breathe 6 seconds in, 6 seconds out, that wave is going to look a certain way, right? It's going to be a nice, smooth sine wave, but it's a small wave. And if I just evoke positive emotion, that wave looks the same. It's a small wave. But if I breathe 6 seconds in, 6 seconds out, and evoke positive emotion in the body, that wave gets really deep, which is fascinating. And the depth of that wave indicates the status of your nervous system. It indicates how well, as you breathe in, you're kicking in the sympathetic nervous system, and how well, when you're breathing out, you're kicking in the parasympathetic nervous system. So you may get, I've seen as much as a 50-point difference in heart rate between the inhale and the exhale, which is pretty dramatic. 30 is pretty easy to get, but you can also get up to 50. And that is an indication that you have control over your nervous system. You have that ability to go from 100 to 0. And what's great about it is you get real-time feedback on the screen. You can see the depth of that wave, and the goal is to get that wave as deep as possible. And once you do that, what's incredible is because you can see it, it's a biofeedback essentially, right? So you engage in a certain behavior and you can see on the screen what happens to your nervous system. And eventually you don't have to use that device anymore. You can feel it in the body. I had a situation where my mom passed in 2019. 2020, we were going to go on a motorcycle ride, my dad, my sister, a couple other people, to spread her ashes in some of her favorite places where she and my father used to go on long motorcycle trips, Montana, places like this, really Wyoming, Utah, really beautiful places. COVID happened. We had to delay that trip. When we eventually went on the trip, my father was on a new motorcycle. He had never been on a long trip on. And the first day we're in Colorado, he has a motorcycle accident, and he's in his 70s, right? And it was a big ordeal to get a rental car out there. I had to drive like 4 hours to find a rental car. He's injured, stay in a hotel for a couple of days, finally put him in the car and traveled to Texas, about a 10-hour trip to get him to Texas. And I had the car for 3 days, but the rental company wanted to charge for 7 days. And so I was going to have to return the car and have a conversation with whoever's behind the counter about the fairness of what they were trying to do. And I realized that I was really frustrated by the time I reached the airport. So I parked in the parking lot and on the move between the car and the front door, I realized that, hey, I want to be skillful when I go interface with whoever is behind the counter. Whoever it is, it's not their fault, right? That somebody has this policy that they're going to charge me for 7 days, despite the fact that I only had the car for 3 days. And so I really wanted to adjust my attitude. And so on the walk, I love, I think it was Jack Cornfield who said, and I could be wrong, sometimes I misattribute, but one of the famous meditation teachers in the United States once said, mindfulness is not a speed, right? And so the goal is to be mindful at the speed of life. So I'm walking from my car to the front door of the airport to go have this conversation. And while I was walking, I put my hand on my chest, started to breathe in that balanced way that I mentioned earlier, and evoking positive emotion. So by the time I got to the counter, my nervous system was ready to have a skillful conversation and not allow my frustration to bleed off on this person that had nothing to do with the situation, right? So that to me is the power of mindfulness and breathing combined together. It can make you more skillful in situations where otherwise you may have done something that you're going to regret.
Yep.
Do something that you're going to regret. That never happens, does it?
Yeah, unfortunately, it's happened a lot to me.
I get that. And by the way, we're talking with Asher Lester, and go to his website, Burchell, which is www.
Yes, www. I believe, let me go back. Oh my gosh, nervousapes.com. Go check that out, and we'll be right back.
And Burchell, are you a nervous ape?
Never.
I just love that. And we need to take a quick break, and we will be right back. Stay right where you are, everybody. Here's another point to ponder by Positive Talk Radio. In a dark room, a single candle was lit. That tiny flame chased away the shadows, filling the space with hope. Your courage, your kindness, and your light may seem small at times, but it can change someone's entire world. Never underestimate the power you already carry inside. Even the smallest flame can ignite a fire that transforms lives. You are listening to Positive Talk Radio, where stories of hope come alive. Here's another point to ponder by Positive Talk Radio. A woman spent years hating the reflection in her mirror. One day, she whispered, "I am enough." Day by day, her reflection became her friend. Self-love begins with the words you tell yourself. Speak gently, because you are listening. This is brought to you by Positive Talk Radio, where stories of hope come alive. And welcome back to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. And oh, by the way, there's Burchell. That's right, her. She's right there. And Asher Lester is here. And Asher, I wanted to ask you, does mindfulness and how you talk to yourself matter?
I love this question. So there was the vast majority of my life, to be honest with you, this was, I don't know, decades. I talked to myself in a way that if I said to you what I was saying to myself in my head, it would be considered verbal assault.
Yeah.
Right. And it was literally for the most ridiculous of things, dropping a pin on the floor. Right. I would cuss myself out, essentially. Right. And I remember this was around the time I was just finally kind of fed up with this. And interestingly, had you asked me if I interface with people well, I would say yes. But I didn't realize just how much the way I was interfacing with myself internally, what I was saying to myself, my inner dialogue, was clouding the way I interface with other people in subtle ways, subtle but really important ways. Until, I ran across the work of Sharon Salzberg and the work she does regarding loving kindness. And when I first heard that meditation, just the name of it, I was like, I don't want any part of that. That's not what I'm doing, right? And there was just something sappy about it. It's like, I'm not interested.
Sappy? Kindness isn't sappy.
Well, I'm just being honest that that's just kind of the way it landed for me, right?
Yeah.
And about that time, there was a famous psychologist on the scene that was talking about that which you most need to find will be found where you least want to look. And I just thought that was brilliant. And so I decided that sensation, that block that I was experiencing regarding loving kindness, I'm a type A personality, try to have high performance. I'm not interested in anything that's going to make me a doormat. I'm not interested in anything that's going to make me perform less in some form or fashion. I didn't realize I had this belief until I was analyzing all this, that I had this belief that if I don't talk to myself in this way, then I'm going to lose my edge in some capacity. And so because of what that psychologist said, I decided to interpret that resistance I was experiencing to loving kindness meditation as a clue as to where I needed to go, the direction I needed to go. And it was truly the most pivotal moment of my life when it comes to meditation practice, because I decided to dedicate to that practice for 90 days, just as an experiment, just to fight that resistance that I was experiencing. And it was truly life altering. It is not an exaggeration for me to say that it turned my inner dialogue upside down completely, to where it went from 90% negative, 10% positive, to 90% positive, 10% negative or less. I truly started to develop what I've heard some meditation teachers call an inner compassionate coach, right? Rather than this demeaning, just terrible voice that was in my head. And it wasn't until that switch happened that I realized just how much the way I was interfacing with myself was clouding how I was interfacing with other people. And it's just been truly life altering. And interestingly, I didn't lose my edge. In fact, the opposite.
You gained a new edge.
I did. That's incredible, right? The opposite happened, where I became better, literally, just because of the way I interface with myself, the inner dialogue. Just because that changed, I became better at everything that I do as a human being.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing about that is when you do that, when you make that shift, then other people can see that shift in you, and it transforms how they view you and how they look at you, and even the things that they say to you. Don't you think?
Absolutely. Yeah. Interestingly, around that time, I had somebody that I barely knew, and this is one of those things where people might ask, are you a better person as a result of some of these things? And I would say yes, but it's not really, it's not for me to determine, right? You shouldn't just survey the person. You should survey the people around you to determine truly whether what you're doing is working. And I had this guy contact me on social media, and he said, I've been watching you from afar, and I've been having some serious challenges, and I felt like you would be the person to talk to about those challenges, just because I've seen your progress over the course of time, which I thought was really powerful.
It is. Brachelle, go ahead.
Okay, yes. So I'm thinking everything that we're talking about has me remembering a conversation that we had maybe about 2 weeks ago. And I'd like to ask you, I don't even know how to really phrase this, because being in a meditative state and meditating, that's the same thing, right? Like if you're in a meditative state, you have to be in meditating. But where I get wrapped up is I've seen and experienced myself so many times where it's that same moment, but you're not just sitting in one place, and you're not just with your eyes closed, like walking through the river, and taking people to walk on a trail, or, you know, just have moments of stillness. So it is possible to be in a meditative state and doing everything that you're talking about without maybe somebody who's like, oh my gosh, holding still and keeping my eyes closed is harder for me than moving and being aware of where I'm at and absorbing that to get to that state. Is that fair just to say?
Yeah, what you're talking about is bringing what we might call concentration power, sensory clarity, and equanimity to everyday life. I spent probably the first decade and a half of my meditation experience. I started when I was 18, but back then there were no apps. There was you read a book and then you sit on the cushion and make the best of it, right? And what I recognized was that, you know, I would spend whatever amount of time on the cushion, but the moment I came off the cushion and walked out of that door, out of that room, I wasn't a better person. It wasn't making me better just sitting on the cushion, right? I had to have a systematic way of carrying the practice. I actually had to have someone handhold me and show me, look at my day and say, where can we bring mindfulness into the day, throughout the day, all day? And interestingly, that to me is the piece that is missing for so many people. When it might be easier for them to bring mindfulness in that way rather than sitting in a chair because they're just battling their brain so much sitting, which is what it sounds like you were referring to, where it's just so much easier for you to bring mindfulness on the move, like a walking meditation out in nature or whatever it might be. But think about, for example, one of the best things I ever did for myself when it comes to daily practice, all day practice, was just fit mindful moments into my day, all day. For example, how many times do we walk through a door in a day? I have no idea.
At least 10.
It's gotta be at least 10, probably 100 times. There's no telling, right? But it's a lot. Just think about opening and closing a door, opening and closing the refrigerator, opening and closing a cabinet, right? So what are all the mundane activities that we engage in throughout the day that we can use as an opportunity to build in mindfulness for short periods of time? Because those short periods, they have a cumulative effect over the course of time. And they actually create momentum in your mindfulness practice that doesn't take the place of formal sits, but it's very powerful. And I think it's almost more important in the sense that if I'm bringing meditation, mindfulness into everyday life, I'm going to be a more skillful human. Whereas I can sit on the cushion for a decade and a half, and every time I get on the cushion, I'm no better for it, right? So there has to be there has to be a bridge between the two to generalize the skills from the cushion into everyday life. And one of the easiest ways to do that is to build it into mundane activities like opening and closing a door. It takes 5 seconds to go through a door and mindfully feel the doorknob, walk through mindfully, turn around and close the door nice and smooth. Even if the door closes on its own, don't allow it to do that. You close it nice and slow. It takes 5-8 seconds at the very most to do that. And you do that 100 times a day. That is quite powerful.
That's really interesting. By the way, we were talking with Asher Lester. Go to his website, which is
nervousapes.com.
You beat her.
Oh, sorry, Kevin.
You did. You beat her. So that's great. And when we come back from this break, because way back in 2002, when I went on a spiritual journey and we went to a place and they started to teach us meditation and something called guided meditation. I would like to talk with you when we come back about that, because there were some really unique experiences that happened during you're smiling, I can see, during the meditative process when you are either guided or you set out an intention of this is what you'd like to achieve through that meditation. That can be really a monumental experience. When we come back, I'd like to to touch on that. Can we do that, Asher?
Absolutely.
We'll be right back.
You're listening to Brushwood Media Network, the best in syndicated talk, news, and entertainment shows.
Are you looking for your daily dose of inspiration? Stay connected to all your favorite shows, music, and news with the Brushwood Media Network app. From Positive Talk Radio to Greatest Vibes Unplugged and so many more uplifting voices around the world, everything you need is right in one place. It's easy to use, too. Always available and designed to keep you inspired 24 hours a day. Go to brushwoodmedianetwork.com and download the app, and you will always have Brushwood Media available on your smartphone. Download it now and make inspiration and music and conversation part of your everyday. And welcome back to Positive Talk. My name is Kevin McDonald, and Asher Lester is with us. And Rochelle, prior to me having Asher answer this, I want to ask you, have you ever done a guided meditation?
Yeah, I have actually done a few. The first few just put me to sleep, which a lot of people run into. I can't meditate, I just fall asleep. And maybe that's what you need. But yeah, I've done a few, and honestly, it's crazy when you do fall asleep, because then your subconscious is listening.
Well, because my experience was, even if you didn't fall asleep, that it became like a moving picture in your mind of what was going on. And it wasn't like you were saying, okay, I'm going to think about when I was playing baseball, and we're going to talk, I'm going to think about that, and then I'm going to meditate on that. It's like, if you can clear your mind, and Asher, I would love your opinion on this, if you clear your mind, and so that you're allowing your subconscious and the universe to come in, and it will talk to you, and it will tell you things that you, number one, may not want to hear, but number two, may enlighten you in a different way of thinking and a different way of being. Do I need to be on medication?
Yes.
I'll go with what Rochelle said, just because she's around you more. But I
Go ahead.
You know, what's interesting is really what it comes down to is, are we applying the three skills of concentration, power, sensory clarity, and equanimity? And if we're doing that, we are meditating. We're engaged in mindfulness, ultimately, right? And so the question is, are we applying those skills? If we go completely asleep, we're not doing that because we're not aware of our awareness anymore, right? So, right. But interestingly, we can be aware of sleepiness. We can also do things to address the sleepiness. If we're trying to do a formal meditation, for example, we could open our eyes. And again, this is a way to bridge the skills that you're learning from the cushion into everyday life. Everyday life happens with your eyes open. So at some point, it's a good idea to do some of your meditations, your formal meditations, with eyes open, because you're trying to bridge that gap. You're trying to generalize those skills with eyes open throughout the day. One of the greatest things I learned from the system developed by Shinzen Young called unified mindfulness is that anything and everything can be a source of meditation. It can be our focus range to enhance those three skills of concentration, power, sensory clarity, and equanimity. So if you think about, if you close your eyes, you have the inner space in your mind where you can see images. This is where thoughts are popping up. You see images. You can hear those thoughts that are going along with the images or the internal dialogue, and you have emotions. That is see in, hear in, feel in. And then if you have your eyes open, you see outside the body. You can hear sounds outside the body. And then you have all other sensations in the body that are not related to emotion. An itch, pressure, temperature, moisture, all of that, that's feel out. So that's 6 areas, 6 modalities that we can be focused on at any given time. And interestingly, if I'm focused on one thing, let's say I'm focusing on rest in the body, but these thoughts keep coming up, it's not that we want to clear our mind per se. It'd be nice, but we only have so much agency over clearing our mind. What we have agency over is our attention, where our attention goes. So if I'm focused on rest in the body and I'm trying to promote rest in the body, but I have this nagging rumination that keeps coming up, some past event that is bothering me, back to rest in the body, or I can just focus on rest and allow whatever that thought is to play out in the background. So we apply what is called background equanimity to it. So we can't search, and it's a lot like if you hold your finger in front of your face and you focus, put the finger in focus, everything around the finger goes out of focus. But then you have the skill, you have the ability to shift that at will and put everything around the finger in focus, but then the finger gets blurry. All right. We do this in having dinner in a busy restaurant and focus on each other. Everything around us sounds like it's just cloudy, right? It's out of focus. But then if you hear something juicy at the table next to you, all of a sudden, I can't hear anything Michelle is saying. I'm listening to the juiciness at the next table, right?
Yeah.
So we do this. We have this ability, but it tends to just happen to us rather than us taking control over it. So that to me is one of the best things I learned is that anything, and then you have the skill to willfully put something in the background while you focus on something else in the foreground. So that's really the way I would manage thoughts that are coming up that aren't necessarily wanted. I can also decide, hey, you know what? This rumination, I just realized that there was some insight in that rumination for the first time in a long time, right? And I can decide to go through that window. You could call it a window of opportunity. I can jump to that window and away, right? So I feel like one of the things that ends up happening to so many people when they start to learn to meditate is they feel like I'm only supposed to focus on my breathing, right? And then when I'm focused on my breathing, I'm distracted all the time, and it drives me insane. I must be terrible at meditation, so I'm just not going to do it anymore. When in reality, those thoughts that are applying concentration power, sensory clarity, and equanimity, meaning that I know that I'm focused on this thing on purpose, and I know that I'm focused on it. I'm thinking, and I know I'm thinking, right? And I can label it thinking. And as long as I'm doing that, I'm getting better at meditating or at mindfulness because I'm strengthening those 3 skills of concentration, power, sensory clarity, and equanimity. And as long as we're strengthening those skills on a regular basis throughout the day, whether it be through a formal seated meditation that is guided or not guided, whatever, or I'm bringing those skills into my daily routine, as long
You have been studying this a long time, and there is some scientific research in your background somewhere because you're using you use those 3 words, anonymity, whatever they were. I can't pronounce them anyway, so it doesn't matter. Time, and you help people understand a little bit differently. How do you help people when they work with you?
meet them where they're at, first and foremost, right? There's no cookie cutter way of doing any of this. Yeah. It's just like Rochelle, she mentioned, I have a client right now that is similar in the sense that he struggles terribly with formal seated meditation. He's just constantly moving, and he does best if we stand up and we apply the get a person to engage in mindfulness, then wonderful. And quite frankly, I think that translates into everyday life better than sitting in with your own thoughts all day long, because we're moving all day long. We're doing stuff all day long. So how do we bring the practices into what we're already doing? Because that to me is the meat and potatoes of the whole thing. If we're not doing that, then we're not to begin with. And so
teaches you, it's almost kind of like learning in advance, because then when you do stop, that's what's naturally happening. So it's not something that it's not like a stress or pressure that's like, oh my gosh, I'm not thinking, or I'm not attentive, or I'm not aware, or like I can feel, I can see, I can hear everything all at once. And so you putting that in a perspective that's a little bit easier for allowing those things to me and Kevin talk about, you already have the answer, you just have to find them. Yeah. And it's kind of that same sense of like you're teaching yourself, allowing you to just be, because when I slow down now and I'm so and it makes me think too that when you get behind the wheel of a car, maybe we should do this, but instead of the door thing, when you get in a vehicle, mindfulness, take yourself out of your own and open up to the surroundings and what is going on outside of you, and realizing that there is more. Because I think how many people that practice this are put in situations of emergencies where there's so much happening around them, but they can be still enough to choose to respond to helping whoever or whatever is the situation. And if we all had that skill, man, it'd be a lot more peaceful, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I love what you said too, and just talking about driving and bringing this into everyday life. One of the signature technique of unified mindfulness is called see, hear, feel. And so the idea is that I don't have to focus on anything in particular. I can keep my eyes open or close my eyes, and all of that stuff that is flooding. You were mentioning that you would experience, you felt, you could see, hear, feel everything, right? Yeah. And it was like a stream that is just, it is, we could just notice in the moment what is the most salient thing in my experience, rather than trying to notice everything. What is the most salient right now? And then label that. Oh, I feel my feet on the floor. I label that feel. And a few seconds later, I notice a thought about something that happened yesterday. And I see it, and I say, see. And then I hear an alarm outside the room, and I say, hear, right? So every few seconds, I'm labeling what is most salient in my experience, and I'm still applying that concentration power, but I'm applying it skillfully. I'm aware of my attention moving, right? I'm applying sensory clarity because I'm recognizing in the moment which senses are being activated and how they're being activated. I'm learning to see. I'm learning to experience my senses in a deeper way. It's like looking at something through a microscope, right? Mm-hmm. Really getting the landscape of experience. So when I feel my feet in contact with the floor, what does that really feel like? What all is there? What all is available? In that, that's the sensory clarity piece. And then the equanimity is just allowing whatever is coming up, allowing whatever it is to come up and disappear or do whatever it does without push or pull, just trying to stay balanced with that experience, whatever it might be.
Allowance is the key thing. And I know we need to take a quick break, but that was the biggest thing for me, Asher, is I told Kevin, I don't know how to control it. He says, you don't. You're not supposed to. And then I started to learn to be thankful for what I could see, what I could hear, what I could down to ground zero almost instantly in every moment, because then when all you have is thankfulness and allowance of yourself, it drops away fear, it drops away everything that is usually negative, and rather than enlighten you, it just brings you back to act accordingly and all those fun things. But I'll let Kevin take us to break, and then I want to talk about the rest of what you're doing and anything that you have coming up that we can share with our audience.
Awesome. Thank you.
I said that to you. That's pretty smart, I think. Wow, sometimes I even get lucky. We'll be right back. We'll be gone just another 1 minute and 2 sponsors. Stay with Positive Talk Radio. What is the easiest thing to justify? It is a small transgression. The one no one will know. The tiny exaggeration on the expense report. The extra minute you took on your lunch break. The packaging you tossed in the wrong recycle bin because it was. Question isn't, will I get caught? The question is, will I know? It isn't about avoiding punishment. It's a silent agreement you make with yourself when you choose to return the wallet, to fix the mistake, to respect the empty space. You aren't impressing the world. You're earning your own respect. That small choice made entirely life you never have to look away from. The only audience that matters is you. And welcome back to Positive Talk. That's my take on integrity. Asher, what do you think of that little piece?
I love that. I mentioned the master program earlier for the kids at Krav Maga Houston. We talked about that all, and because you know it, rather than doing things because you're getting a pat on the back. This just happened. Somebody was actually killed in Dallas, Texas, over holding the door open. A woman held the door open for another lady. The lady walks through the door, doesn't say thank you. And so the woman holding the door open says something to her about not saying thank you. And the woman who held the door open ended up getting shot and killed over it. Right? And so I see situations like that, and we use situations like that as, right? What you have here is two people whose emotions got out of hand, right? It can sound like blaming the victim, but in order to have agency and to prevent terrible things from like that from happening in the future, it's good to analyze those things and go, well, why am I holding the door open? Am I holding the door open because I want to be a good person? Or am I holding the door open because I want to hear that thank you? I want that pat on the back, right? Yeah. And so if we just hold the stupid door to be a good person, you don't care what that other person has to say about it. You don't care if they say thank you or not, right? And if they don't, you're never going to say, well, you're welcome as they're walking away. You're not going to confront them about it, right?
Well, I've done that before.
Yeah. I'll admit I've done it too. But when I look at it honestly, what am I wanting in that moment? Am I doing it because I want to be a good person, and I'm doing it to be nice, or am I doing it because I really want that pat on the back? And if the person doesn't say thank you, and I confront them about
it, and I didn't tell you thank you, and you questioned me about it, and I shot you like it's hilarious because it's so human, but it's so sad.
It's so sad
because it's so human. Like the unawareness of a split-second decision of emotion got somebody killed.
Right.
over a door, over a thank you. And maybe, for the rest of us, if somebody holds the door open for you, just say thank you. It's those moments too, to remind ourselves when you're giving and when you're being, you're not doing it because of the way it will benefit you. Because when you naturally set out the intention to help more than just yourself, it comes back. That's what people don't get through everything in your life. So when you adjust yourself, you adjust your entire reality. And I know if you would have told me that 2 years ago, I probably would have said some very mean things to your face. But I get it now.
Well, and that's the thing. Kindness has nothing to do with the other person. Kindness has to do with who you choose to be in the world. And it doesn't matter whether they are not going to be kind back, because it's true. And what they choose to do is totally up to them. We don't have any control. I'm sure Brachelle's boyfriend doesn't know this yet, but he doesn't have any control over her and stuff. And you don't have any control over another person. You just have what you can do and what you know to be right. And that's all that matters. And unless, of course, you're returning a wallet and it's got $5,000 in it. Why did I return that?
No, Kevin. Because that makes me think, when we learn to be kind outside of ourselves, doesn't that help us naturally do it within? Because I just thought about this while you were saying that. You get yourself, like, how does that work? Is that why people don't do it? Because they feel like they have to be the ones to validate themselves? Or is that how we learn to do that with other people in order for us to do it for us? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. It seems to me that the reality is that kindness is its own reward in some capacity, right?
Yeah.
But then we sometimes have expectations of other people at the same time, and a situation like this sounds like that's the door open. The other person doesn't reciprocate with a kind gesture, and what ends up happening is you have one person projecting their values onto someone else, which is almost always not going to work out in your favor, right? To me, it's truly understand what it is. What are your motives behind whatever it is you're doing? And this is where mindfulness comes in, to truly examine on a deep level, why am I engaged in a particular behavior? And not project my values onto other people, which is super hard to do, but there's value in figuring that out for yourself. That way, you're not always looking for the extra goodie of reciprocation. But if it is reciprocated, you have that much more appreciation and gratitude for that reciprocation.
That's true.
And it's being done in an appropriate manner.
That's right.
And it's more genuinely heartfelt on their part, because you know that they mean it. But Asher, you're a lot of fun to talk to. I really appreciate all the work that you're doing. Tell us more about your business. How can somebody work with you if they want to gain some insight into themselves? Mindfulness is a great way to do that. And tell them how they can work with you.
Yeah, so you can always find me on social media. I'm on Facebook and Instagram under Nervous Apes. People can go to the website, nervousapes.com. They can also just email me, nervousapes@gmail.com. I focus primarily on teaching 6-week fundamentals courses, fundamentals of breathing and meditation. I sometimes do an advanced course. I also recently did an ancient practices course where we looked at practices from all over the world that are very old, thousands of years old, and played around with some of those. That was a lot of fun. But my focus is primarily on teaching the fundamentals of breathing and meditation to people who have never engaged in either, or tried it and then felt like they failed at it. That's really where I get the greatest reinforcement for myself, is seeing people who struggled And with breathing meditation, start to get it and start to really have life-changing benefits from it. So I teach those classes. I also do private training as well for people who prefer to do that. So I'm pretty open to doing whatever a person, whatever they need to get them where they want to go.
And what if they don't know where they want to go? They got to know it's going someplace. How do you help them?
Yeah. Oftentimes that is the case where a person isn't sure. They're like, hey, so-and-so said I should do this. And so, here I am, right? And so it's an exploration at that point. It's an experiment to see, to give them a buffet of options. Say, hey, look, here's 5 different meditations that we're going to practice over the course of time. Here's how to incorporate some breathing into your day. Here's what proper breathing looks like. We'll do a couple of assessments on them and let them know kind of where they are currently with their breathing, because the reality is that 95% of the population breathes in a way that is aberrant. They've done so since they were 5.5 years old. That's the average age at which people change their breathing patterns from a normal mammalian breathing pattern to something that looks nothing like a normal mammal. And we breathe that way for decades, for the rest of our life. Kevin, you mentioned before we got on air about the 25,000 breaths that we take per day. This is one of the things that really made me realize if you do something 25,000 times a day, it makes sense that the quality of that thing is going to have some impact on your life. So if you're not doing it well, it's going to have a negative impact. If you're doing it well, it's going to have a positive impact. And so I help them analyze what it is they're currently doing and whether it's serving them. And if it's not, here's a buffet of options to address that potential.
And I just want to share, if you're seeing our audience going, oh, breathing, come on, 25,000 times a day, come on. I want to tell you about a practice that pregnant ladies use when they are in delivery, and it's called Lamaze, and it's because breathing affects can do an amazing group of things that you don't even know about unless you study it and the way that Asher has. So I highly encourage you, because it can change your entire life. As an example, if you're in that car and you're having a road rage experience, you can learn how breathing and mindfulness can get you out of that so that you don't end up shooting somebody or them shooting you.
Yeah.
Good point.
And
protect the car. Remember how much you love that car. If you hate that car, remember how much you love where you're going. And if you hate where you're going, then find something. And there's got to be something.
and as Rochelle had the experience long ago, there was a guy that was going really fast, and he was diving in and out of traffic. And way, I'm paraphrasing Rochelle, but we don't have a lot of time. But he wouldn't get out of the way, and Rochelle, because she was like, I don't need this, I don't need to worry about it, I'm just going to move over and let him by. So she moves over and let him by. He speeds by, takes a left into the hospital parking lot.
Yeah, there you go. You never know, right?
Yep.
You never know what's going on in somebody else's life.
Yeah.
The way was like, see how you are? Yeah, see now. So hopefully he learned a valuable lesson.
Yes.
Asher Lester has been our guest. Thank you, Asher. You're going to have to come back. We need to talk more.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun.
And your website again, so people, nervousapes.com, I do believe.
You got it.
And if it's not the website, so now yes, and now now you know what's going to happen, don't you? Because you put it out there into the world, you're going to start a rock band, and it's going to be called Nervous Apes.
That might happen. You never know.
No, it will happen. It will happen. Just pick up. What did you play? Guitar or bass?
Play drums.
Yeah.
See, I had one shot at getting it right. That Trump's is red 32. Asher, thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure, sir.
Thanks,
Thank you
Asher.
both.
We appreciate you. Can't wait for you to come back.
Thank you for being part of Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald, where stories inspire and voices remind us of what truly matters. Give you hope, courage, and a reason to keep moving forward. And just remember, till next time, be kind to one another because each other's all we've got.